I forgot to close today. I got most of them, but I missed one. And they jumped on and had a go at the quiz. Just check and see if we're all good here. So I think Glenn started the recording. We've got 40 people online. So I'm going to start the lesson tonight and work our way through what is an interesting evening. Won't necessarily be a real long one, but I want to cover a couple of things tonight that will be particularly useful for you as we go through and consider some of the things of where we're at with our structures. So just going to open up the attendance choice. You can get a second green box if you haven't already, or a first one if you haven't already had a go at that quiz that I accidentally didn't close. Missed closing. About 18 people have done it. So what we want to do tonight is have a quick look through at the worksheets from last night. You should just probably let me know first of all if the quiz is working. Yeah, we are recording. Sorry, the activity. Attendance is working. I think attendance is working, so that's good. What I want to do is just spend a little bit of time going through whoever's on, who's got their microphone not muted, because you just mute your microphone.
Literally, I didn't even get up. I just stayed still.
Everybody. And I'll come back on. Okay, I think you can hear me okay. Is that sound coming through? Just make sure. Testing. 1 2 3. Yep, I think the sound's coming through, so that's good. What I want to do tonight is go through a little bit about talking a bit about last night's quiz with references to typical construction maths, just briefly. So if you go back to last night's lesson, and I'll open it up here in a new tab so you can have a look, or you can come back to it. Somebody who's there, mute their microphone, whoever's coming in with their microphone accidentally on. Maybe Glenn, can you type in a message to them to mute their microphone? Thanks. We looked at the quiz that we were doing last night on, and I think the one that Brett's asked us to look at was look at last night's worksheets and how everyone went with the 1684 quiz. So we're specifically looking here at there was a quiz there on design tables, floors and walls. Just have a quick look at that. And I see we've had quite a few attempts at it. I might just pick a couple and have a bit of a look at it if you like, or if you're feeling you might feel a bit too embarrassed with that, let's go through and have a look at that ourselves on a new one. So with that particular one, you really need to learn, you really need to become familiar with finding information in the Australian standards. And the first thing you're going to have to do is be able to access them. Pretty much that's one of the real key criterias, and we've put that up the top here for you. And I believe you can use any one of these links. This one here is I particularly like because it takes you straight through to the codes. And if you've saved your passwords, it'll put you straight onto the codes and you'll get straight onto 1684. Of course, if we all try it once, it's going to probably take a while to get through to, and it was really slow today. But you have to be able to locate these standards so that you can actually go and find what it is you're looking for. And on each question, it told you. So in this case, we're looking for 1684.4. That's a separate document to 1684.3. So in this case, I'd type in 1684.4, and you just have to be patient and wait a bit for it to come up. Watch out for the AMDT documents, they're amendments. It's not going to be the full document probably, and don't go for superseded ones. So this one looks pretty good, 0.4, and in this particular case, this will give us eventually will take us through to our table. In this case, once we get into the document, we need to look for table A5, and that way we'll be able to look up the table and find the most appropriate answer for this. You'll find that it's not too bad if you use that Control F button, that find, it brings up a little search box, and if you type in table A5, quite often it'll take you straight to it. There's only 5 times that's mentioned in the document, so if I work my way through and I can see I'm in table A5. So the first thing you need to do when you come to these questions is find the source documentation to answer the question. and then go to that documentation and work your way through it. And in trade, I'm sure those who did the carpentry trade or a trade where you had to learn to read these documents, you kind of learnt that you just put all the known information into the document and it'll pop out the other end and give you the answer that you're looking for. Normally the answer you're looking for is a size of timber, a number of pieces and a size of timber. Okay, so we've got information here on bearer spacing 2100. We can just pop back here and there's a bearer spacing column. So we're going to be down here in this column here. Okay, and then we go to the second piece of information, which in this particular case is the bearer span. And that particular one was 1800. So we go through to the bearer span of 1800 and that's going to lock us into this row right across here. Okay, move down to the next one, it's MGP10. Normally that's the very first thing you have to choose when you're choosing your table. But in this particular case, we can see here's MGP10. So we've been locked into this one here, which is two 170 by 35s. Okay, now there's two charts here, one's strutted roof, one's unstrutted roof. So I'm thinking that might be important. It says truss roof maximum span 12, that's meters. So in this particular case, that's a strutted roof, maximum span 3 meters. So we've got to move down till we get to our 12 meter one. And there we go, truss roof maximum span 2100, 1800, and we come through here, just reveal the top up here a bit, and you can find your answer. So you just work your way through those tables like that, and then you should be able to. I'll just turn the chat back on again here. You should be able to answer those questions quite easily. Now, when you do your exam at the end of this unit, that's the type of thing you're going to have to be able to do fairly quickly. So remember, first of all, find the document that you need, the booklet that you need, and then find the part in the document. Use your control find search button to do that, and then work your way down with all the known information until you can solve it for the unknown information. And that way you should be able to work your way through even those fairly complex questions that you come across. So that was last night's one, and down the bottom of last night there was one there for wall terminology, and that particular one, I'll just open that in this page here, because that particular one, we've had quite a lot of people do that, and that was pretty much just asking you questions based on one of the diagrams. And once again here, if you can't see which diagram it is, back on the question, I think it told you to refer to Australian Standard, right back on the question where it pointed you to the question, it was telling you to refer to the Australian Standard, because that's what we've been working with. So there are specific names for all the different parts, and that's what we would want to stick to. So here we are tonight on lesson 8. Got the attendance choice, which you should have done, and you should be pretty right there with that. I'm just going to quickly open up those worksheet answers to quickly show you those. That was another part that we worked on last night, which was the worksheet, and that's something that I'm going to spend a couple of minutes on there. So I'll just go through that, because we had a fairly big worksheet last night that you worked on with the we had to do some calculations. I'll just go back up to where that one was. I think it was the worksheet. So this is the dead loads worksheet. This is where you had your dead load worksheet, and you also had a live load worksheet. So I'm putting that up there for you so that you have an understanding, and you can check back with the recording and start it later, so that you have an understanding of how the maths works, because you should be all pretty right with this now. And you can see here we're multiplying, we're finding the factor. The key thing here is to find the kilonewton factor of the type of material that we're dealing with. So in this particular case, we're dealing with hardwood, and the weight factor is 11 kilonewtons per cubic metre. So all we have to do with the beam is find the cubic metres. In that particular case, for that activity, if you look back at last night's work, it was a 300 by 300 by 6.4 long beam, which is 0.576 cubic metres, multiply it by 11 kilonewtons per cubic metre, and that came up with a total kilonewtons of that beam of 6.3. And concrete's the same, and we have information on all of those ones. Now I put up here for you So you can refer to it, that it's real important that we refer to the typical construction mass in the appendix of the Australian standard. And the relevant Australian standard for this one was 1684.2. And I think I've got my standards here, and we'll see whether this one actually works. Remember, they do die after a couple of days, and this one's still active, so that's good. So I'm going to go down here to Appendix A. Remember, this is 1684.2. There's 4 of these, and this is the second one. Sometimes these tables are duplicated throughout some of the different standards, and that's good if they are, but that's where the question has referenced us to, so that's where we go and get it. And you'll see if you go down here and you look at hardwood, that we have hardwood, that's roof construction material, so we keep on going down here. This is for roofing, battens and purlins. We come down here to boards and lining. There's much more information here than what you need, but you can find that it's all in here. And then we come down to, I think one of them there came down to hardwood, and it worked out at 11. Actually, on this particular, that's hardboard. Here we go, seasoned hardwood. So seasoned hardwood, typical building masses, that's kilograms per metre squared for those ones. Typical roof mass constructions. Where was that table? I know the timber species and properties table has a lot of that information in as well, and that comes in sideways. Strength joint group, kilograms per metre cubed. So here we have for kilograms per metre cubed, and that can be transferred over to kilonewtons. One of our little BuildRight programs had those typical construction masses in there too, so we can go and get that information from those ones. So I'm going to open up for you the next part here that we deal with, and we're going to look tonight. We need to spend a little bit of time looking at cyclone regions, just briefly, because coming up on Monday night, we're going to spend a fair bit of time. We're actually going to go through, and I'll pick a site somewhere in Australia, and I'll go through and show you how to determine the wind loading for that particular site. It's actually not that hard, but I'll go through and show you step by step how you can do that. Here I have that I've just opened up for you an example of that map, and you can see we talked about this the other night, and we said that cyclones, region C out here, which is cyclone, is very close to the coast, and it's anywhere on this list from Bundaberg through to, it comes up to another geographic point on the side over here on the side. So there's places where they attribute that, and they call these areas cyclone areas, and they call it a cyclone area within a distance from the coast. You can see an example here of some of the lineage and how it works. In this particular case, it's 50, 100, 150. So the distance apart of these lines could be 50, 100 and 150. That'd be kilometres apart. Okay, coastal region boundaries are smooth lines set in from the smooth coastline by 50, 100, 150 and 200 kilometres. Islands within 50 mil of the coast are the same region as the adjacent coast. Regions are marked with the letters A, A1 to 5, B, C and D. Region A3 is a bit different here. Region A4, we've got region A1, and most of us are inland here are in A1. And then we've got A3, and then we come out to A2, which is on the coast, down on the New South Wales coast. Okay, generally from 30 degrees of parallel of latitude south. Okay, so that's an example of the table that you find at the front of Australian Standard 4055. We'll just drop that back to, so it looks a bit more sense there. So that's the wind regions. I'm going to open up here once again the Australian Standard, which you all have access to. And in this particular case, we've got Australian Standard 1684.3. This is a PDF document, which I think Brett or Glenn have set it up so that it actually does work for you and doesn't go green. And in this case, we want to go to procedure 9.3 for the flowchart, because this is an example of how it basically shows you step by step how we can set up our, in this particular case, how we can set up and do our fixings and tie down. So here's the contents page at the beginning here, and in the contents page at the beginning of that chapter we have general, then we've got general connection requirements, and then we have a procedure flowchart. That's real helpful for us, because we do everything on that procedure flowchart, and we'll be able to come out with the type of fixings that we need for a particular job. That goes through all this information and gives us the type of fixing that we get from our local favourite hardware store. Now, the same thing applies to the bracing, raking and shear forces for bracing. At the beginning of that chapter, there's also a procedural flowchart, a step-by-step, just like I showed you that there was for Australian Standard 4055 for framing. It has the same type of thing. And here I've got 1684.2, and I'll show you here for fixings and tie downs. This one's this is the same one actually as what you're dealing with, and it pretty much goes through general, and then it goes through here some general connection requirements. The information here is interesting and relevant because, for example, it says the size of steel washers shall be determined from 9.1, so it's pretty specific. Got to be a certain type, certain size, all those sorts of things. It says drillings for bolts. Bolt holes in unseasoned timber shall be 2 to 3 mil greater in diameter than the bolt diameter. For seasoned timber shall be 1 to 2 mil greater. Bolt holes in steel shall provide a snug fit. Okay. Drilling for coach screws. That's real important. It tells you exactly there what hole to drill for the shank and for the thread. Okay, so you have to look up and see what a shank is and the thread is if you're not quite sure, and you should be able to we should be able to find that fairly easily if we can get rid of that. And I'm not sure if they allow us to copy in here. You can follow through and have a bit of a look at that. I'll come back to that probably a little bit later if we get a chance. It goes through some more fixing requirements, goes through some general tie down type things, and then it comes to this real important procedure flowchart. Look at this flowchart and see how useful this is going to be for us. So it says, where required, fixing and tie down requirements shall be provided in accordance with this chart, figure 9.4. Let's go and make sure we've got all of 9.4. So it's all on this page here. And pretty much all you do is you start at the top here and you work through and you answer each question as you go. So I encourage students when you're doing an assignment for Mr. and Mrs. Smith's house, for example, is you copy this page and you put this page on a document and you just go through and answer all the questions. So you say to yourself at the moment, I don't know what nominal means. I don't know what specific means. Well, you go and see clause 9.4. Remember, there's 3 ways that information is presented in these legal documents. One way is with words and sentences, and that's going to be called a clause. Another way is with tables, and another way is with figures. That's the only 3 ways you find it. So we go down to the written information here, and there's 9.4, and it'll tell you what nominal and specific are. And then you work your way down through that chart, and right down the end, you'll pop out the end, and it'll tell you what type of fixing to use. I'll just give you a real quick example of what we're going to come out with at the end. We'll actually show you the type of bracing. I'm just skimming right down here real quick. It'll tell you, for example, that you're allowed to use, let's just pick, actually I'll go through to trusses because most of you are familiar with trusses. So we'll just do a search for truss. Here we go. So there's an example. We'll just go to a typical triple grip for trusses. And I think I had one here the other day I was looking at. Somebody was asking a question about that. Okay, I might not be able to find it too quick here. So in this particular case, we're dealing here with a table. We usually go to the beginning of the table if we can, so we can find out what the title of the table is. 920. It looks like this is a pretty long table. And each one is going to be, here we go. This is the uplift capacity of beam lintel tie down connections. And in this particular case, the first part that it's going to deal with, the first block of information that you can see here, is going to deal with the position of the tie down connection, beams, lintels, ring beams to studs, posts and floor. And in this first type, which is A, that's what you would see on your engineer's diagrams for your building. You pull out your plans and it'll say type A, and it'll probably have a picture like that the engineers just copied that straight off Australian standard, and they've just told you which type of nails and fastenings and which type of straps to use. So you work your way right through there, and this is the type of answer that you'll come up with. For example, 30.8 millimetre diameter galvanised iron strap, number of nails as per table. You come over here to the table, and it could tell you exactly how many nails. So you might have 6 2.8 diameter nails each end of the strap, something like that. So it's very specific, and that's where we're headed when we start to read these standards, to be able to work out what we're trying to how we're trying to build the building. So that pretty much covers that one for you. And I just have a quiz here, which I think a lot of people had a go at earlier, which I opened up. I might just work through this one with you. And this is a cyclones quiz one. Quite a few people had a go at this earlier and were saying they couldn't get a complete result. I've opened it up again now because I accidentally had it open, and you're basically going to go through and find the answers to these. So this shouldn't be too hard now. You should be pretty familiar. 1170 is loads. That's probably more loads there. Structural action designs, I would think. You can go through and have a quick look, and if you're not quite sure, just jump onto Australian standards and have a look at the different options there, and work your way through those questions to be able to do that activity. So I've opened that one up for you. Not too sure how many got that particular one right, but that just comes straight from 1684. Okay, and it tells you here you can choose most of the 1684s, and it'll tell you that one. Work your way through this question. Temporary bracing. I think most people, there we go there. Temporary bracing is on page 111, and temporary bracing's shown up here, and I'm hearing 60 over my shoulder here, which is correct. So I talked to you about this the other day, that was 60. So there's your answer for that one there. Just pop 60 in there. Should be a pretty quick green box, this one. Go to your construction load. What's that called on the right-hand side over there? This table, it says go to section 9 to the table. You'll find this table is in most of the standards. So if you have a bit of a look at most of the standards, I'm just going to go to 9. There it is right there, and the word there is suction. Okay, it's called suction. It's not called leeward anymore. They call it suction in there. That's, I guess, what it is. Come to 5. You should be pretty right with that. So you've got to find the diagram. In this particular case, if you go to figure 9 to 8, joining of top plates and ring beam for fixings and tie downs, you can go there quickly by clicking the little plus on the side there, and give yourself a little bit more room on the bookmarks on the side. And we wanted to go to 928. And even though I'm in number 2, 1684 number 2, and the question's saying 3, it's probably going to be the same type of figure, because they generally transfer it across, not always, but you can soon check and see. And the question here says, what's the correct minimum number of nails required? So we're looking for the nails here for this one, and I think we're looking for 3.05. 3.05 I'm hearing here over my shoulder. Sorry? The drawing said, yep, that's good. So you three nails that are 3.05. You should be pretty right with this too. You can follow your way through. There's a bit of a hint in there for you. 9.2. So we'd be back here to 9.2, I think, in that case. You can follow your way through and find your joining of top plates and ring beams. There should be a diagram in there somewhere, joining of top plates and ring beams. So you should be starting to feel pretty confident to be able to get your way around this quiz and these Australian standards real good. This is I'm not gonna finish it all off for you. You can work on that yourselves, but this is going to become real good for you as you start to put together all the engineering details from Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Okay. Now, onto a new little topic. Tonight, most of what we're going to be dealing with tonight is going to be about termite management systems, and so that we can cover that. And of course, there's an Australian standard for termite management. So we've got a little activity here where you can grab yourself a real quick little green square, green completion box. And in this forum, I want you to tell me some of the termite management system that you've seen have worked with. And can you help me by telling me something that you've worked on real recently that's new that you might not have even heard about, might not have even been around when you first started your trade, because most of you have been in the building industry for 3-4 years. So can you pop in there something that's new that you've worked with, that might not have been around when you first started your trade? And I'll just give you a couple of minutes to put some things in there, and we'll just have a look and see what you're typing in. So we're talking here about termite management system, something to manage termites that could occur in a building and cause damage. Just hold off your quiz if you're doing that, and you can jump onto that a little bit later. Thanks, Callum. You've got the star there, the first one. So Callum's mentioned smart film. I bet you all mentioned lots of things that I haven't necessarily had any experience with before. And here's smart film termite barrier. So this is I'm not sure if I have seen that used, but I don't know a lot about it. And the first thing I would go to is the technical installation information on it. And I'll guarantee there's a lot of information there that'll tell us about how to technically install it. You got to basically, looks like you've got to, do you have to be a certified installer? It can be molded around unusual building designs to ensure the highest level, the centres and their installers. So that looks like you're going to need to be an installer, I'm assuming, to install this, a trained installer. It's a perimeter type system. Awesome, that's great. Thank you for that one, Callum. I'll just do a refresh here and see what else we've come up with. So now we've come up with another one here. Martin's put in, what have we got now? Used visual system like AntCap on piers and brick base. That's good. That's been around for ages. The important thing with visual is that it's really hard to replace it, but you have to check regularly because they can build in there real quick. And a spray system where a hose get left under the house and deck with holes every 12 months a guy hooks up. So that's good. Thank you for that. That's another system. We got any other systems, especially new ones that you might be able to help? We might be able to help each other with. So for physical or chemical product designed to prevent termites, we've got smart film chemical retic system, TermiMesh. Pretty familiar with TermiMesh. Chemical retic system. I'll just have a quick look for that. That sounds like a product name. Chemical retic. Is that looks like that's tick removal. Is that a maybe turn your microphone on or type in the chat box there? It's what Martin just said, have to get, yep, okay, reinstall every few months. Thank you for that. So that's good. Got a couple coming in now with termites. So we've got creosote. Okay, very good. Creosote is a product that has been used in the past to be able to control termites. Just not sure whether you're allowed to anymore. Let's just have a quick check. Spell creosote. Let's check with creosote. I did hear somewhere that there was an issue with it. Let's have a look what Safe Work Australia says about creosote. So just make sure you're on a legitimate website here, and I'm checking this one. It says .gov.au, so this will be a legitimate document. Just scroll down to the bottom and see who printed it, or the top, and it should be a legitimate document. It says baseline health monitoring before starting work in a creosote process. Workers must be informed of the potential health effects associated with exposure to creosote. In particular, workers should be aware of the occurrence and recognition of photosensitivity and skin changes and the need to report them. So that's interesting. There could be some issues there with creosote. Let's just have a look and see what EPA says about creosote. This is a .gov.au site, so that's good. It's one of the oldest forms of timber preservative, derived from coal and wood, contains more than 300 chemicals. It is only used outdoors and it can harm human health if used indoors. Pigment emulsifier, found out what the hazard levels. download the hazard levels and chemical treatment type plant. So it still is used. Avoid skin contact. It can, when exposed to sunlight, it can cause a sunburn-like skin irritation, and it is still used a little bit. So that's interesting. Okay, and that tells us a bit more about that. So that's good. We did a good little learning thing there. Thank you for that. Whoever popped that one in, let's just check and see if we've got a few more coming in there. Look at all of you going for your little green badge. Has anybody got one that's real unusual and they've only just found out that it's available as a new system that is on the product, like that Smart Film or something like that? Smart Film's only been out for a couple of years, I believe. A chemical or physical product designed to prevent termite. Yep, that's good. So Josh says here on the chat box, the quiz is dodgy. Thank you. You did all the right answers. Thank you for that. Did you get your green completion box? I'll have to check the quiz. If you think that there were some issues with it, we'll check that through. We might get Glenn to have a look at that. And sorry, we haven't been able to do a lot of marking of all of your nightly activities, just been flat out marking all the other ones. So we've got cordon termite stuff. Okay, cordon is something that I believe has been around for a little while, is available and used. So let's have a quick look at cordon. We don't need the cordon bleu. Cordon termite barrier. Let's have a look there. Oh, that's right. I think they spell it cordon, K-O-R-D-O-N. I think that's made from daisy bushes or something. I believe that's quite environmentally friendly. There's the full details. There's your barrier. Okay, fully compliant. So how do we go about getting it installed? Cordon specifications, gallery frequently asked questions. Is cordon covered by the Australian standards 3600? Yes, it's a chemical barrier in a non-soil matrix. We're going to learn about that a little bit later. Does it comply with the BCA or the NCC? It's one of the alternative solutions. Remember, the alternative solutions means that the company who manufactures it has to provide their technical details as to how it works. And there they've passed the tests, okay, and all that sort of stuff. So that's great. Good job, everybody. We might leave off looking at any more of those. You've done a real good job and got yourselves a little badge. We're going to play a little video now, a little bit of information about termites, and let's hope it never happens to you. But I'll just get the teachers in the classroom, wherever you are, just to fire up your video, and this is going to go for about 2.5 minutes, and we'll come back after that finishes. I'll just turn the microphone off here. How did we go? People finished okay? Finished? Good job. I'm going to assume you've all seen that, and it was put up a little while ago, but it's an example of that you may need legal people to come in if it needs to go to court or things like that. So I've put up here for you a couple of websites from Fair Trading, for example, on termites. So I just want to show you what they have to say. And pretty much Fair Trading is the organisation, as it says, for fair trade, and it's biased towards the consumer to help the consumer to be able to feel safe when they do things like they're doing here. So if you look here, this is to do with housing and property, building and renovating, and after you build or renovate, and it's talking about termites. And it says here, if you're building a home or renovating, the builder is responsible for providing a termite risk management system for the work. If you're building a new house, you can research your options for materials to help you. So it goes through quite a bit of information there, and it's warning the consumer. You need to be aware of this because this is warning the consumer about what you are going to be doing and what you need to do. So they're going to come to you wised up, knowing what their rights are. And this is an example of some of the places where they're sending people for more information. So the Consumer Association for Termites, Pest Management Association, Pesticide Veterinary Medicines, Office of Local Government. People can go and get all this information and learn about all these things to do with termites and see what. So they'll come to you and they'll be all informed on what their rights are and things like that. So here's another green box coming up. In this particular case, I want you to jump in here and go to the NCC Volume 1 or 2 and discuss what's required for a termite management system. So put into the discussion topic there, what's required for a termite management system. Now, I'm just going to go to the NCC myself because this is probably what you're going to need to do right now anyway. And you should be able, you can use the username and password that you've chosen for your subscription to it, because every one of you have your own subscription. If you want, you can sign up for free and then you can access these. I'm just going to go to volume 2 because that's more housing. It's probably going to ask me to sign up in a second. So you can jump on and do your own login. And you'll get access to the NCC. And here I've got volume 2, just turn some bookmarks on. We'll just jump back to our site here. I won't need that anymore. So our little point here says, can you please go to the NCC volume 1 or 2 and discuss what's required in a termite management system. Let's have a look at volume. I'm going to look at volume 2 for mine. And I'm going to go through and find the termite management system. I'll just shrink some of these little boxes here. Acceptable construction should give me termites, and I think it might be the next one. Structural performance provisions. I'll start at the beginning here. Termite risk management. So in this particular case, we've got termite risk management coming up here. This is in part 3, site preparation. And volume 1's got a good part of it as well. So in this forum, it says, discuss what is required for a termite management system. Here's the requirements. Requirements for termite management systems. In a class 1 or 10 building, it's constructed in an area where termites, okay, the requirements of this part apply where those things happen. For the purposes of the primary element, these things aren't subject to termites, so that's okay. I'll keep going down here, and it comes up with, pretty sure it had a rule, here we are. termite management systems, it must be selected appropriate to that table, comply with Australian Standard 3660, have been tested and passed, have a durable notice installed, and so pretty much that's what the requirements are. Just see what's down below there. That tells you about the durable notice. So that's pretty much your requirements there. Anybody do a post? There should be a durable notice. Aidan's got one here. Good job, selected where appropriate, so have a durable notice, that's good. Where's the durable notice got to be put in accordance to 3144? Must be permanently fixed to the building in a prominent location such as the meter box or the like, indicating the termite management system used, the date of installation of the system, where a chemical is used, its life expectancy, the installer or manufacturer's recommendations for the frequency of inspections. So this is a must type thing. That means every house that you build must have that, and also every house you build must have a termite management system, as long as it meets the criteria. There's exceptions where it doesn't need to, and that's things like if it's built out of these things, and if it's not one of these types of buildings. So that's an example of that. Let's see how many more people got themselves a little green box. That's awesome. What's Josh got in here? Those sorts of things. That's real good. So you can work your way through that and complete those. That's real good there. Let's jump back over to here. Now, I want to spend a couple of minutes here just quickly looking at, I'm going to show you termite proofing requirements as per the NCC. And in this case, this is our performance requirements here, and this one that Brett's put in there is relating to the actions to be considered to satisfy and include but not limited to. So this is for structural requirements, structural provisions. There must be termite actions must be taken into account. Just the same as we have to consider dead loads, live loads, wind action, earthquake action, snow action, liquid pressure action, groundwater action, rainwater action, all those different actions, termite actions must be taken into account as well. Okay, there's probably one somewhere about bushfire actions as well that'll come in. If it's not in there already, I might have missed it. The intent of these requirements is to provide for a termite management system that deters termites from gaining entry to a building via a concealed route. The installation of a termite management system will not stop termite activity from occurring on site. So it's real important to understand that we have to put in something in there. So the next thing we're going to look at here, if we look at, I'm just going to open that up because that's, I think that was, that took us through to, I think those links that are on there might not work to the termite management system, I think. But what we need to do here is go to volume 2 and look at 3134, and we're just going to have a quick look at that. So I'll just go to volume 2, 3134, 3.1.4 termite risk management. We'll duck down here to termite risk management to 3.1.3.1.1. Keep going down here in the standards, 3.1.2, 3, and we get down here to 3.1.4. There we go. Let's see what we're working on now. And we're just going to have a look at, we're going to have a look at the termite risk managements and see what this says. So this is talking particularly about what we were just covering there. So you can see we've talked about the requirements. Each state and territory has their own some of their own specific rules, particularly Northern Territory and Northern Queensland, or Queenslanders adopt it because they have pretty severe termites there. So you can see there's a flow chart here for identifying if a termite management system is required, and that's real helpful because that can be used. It says there, in Northern Territory, delete 3142 and replace with the following. Timber, a naturally termite resistant timber in accordance with Appendix C of Australian Standard 3661 in areas where Mastroterms darwinensis are not prevalent. So that's a type of termite. Okay. Queensland has some of their own requirements there as well, and that's okay. And there's different variations and things. That's because of the different type of exposures that they have there. This is real important to us. An acceptable termite management system needs to look at the different building elements. So for concrete slab on ground, so slab perimeter or external wall perimeter, the termite management system or component options needs to be slab edge exposure, sheet material, granular material or chemical. Okay, concrete slab on ground, for penetrations like your pipes and things like that, you can have sheet material, granular material or chemical. For suspended floors, you can have sheet material, granular material or chemical. For attachments to buildings, we can have termite management system to the attachment inspection zone between attachment and building. So that's an example there we need to be aware of. And there would be a clause that refers to this, and there could be more information in the clause that refers to table 3.1.4.1. Okay, the entire area beneath the slab must be treated when the slab on ground is not designed and constructed in accordance with 2870 or 3600. That's residential slabs and footings. And so if you're not constructing it according to those, then the whole area has to be treated. There's a bit of explanatory information in there, a couple of state and territories guidelines and rules that they put in, and that pretty much covers us for that part of it. Now, there's a diagram here which introduces us to a couple of interesting concepts. I'll actually probably turn that off because those ones there weren't working very good. In this particular diagram, this is looking at Mr. and Mrs. Smith's building, and in this case, we're going to ask the question here, would this be sufficient, or would there be anything we need to consider if we look at Mr. and Mrs. Smith's plan and we look at the yellow representing, for example, a termi mesh positioning? Would there be anything there that we need to consider with that plan? And you're already a little bit familiar with the plan. So type into the chat box if you think there's anything a little bit that we need to consider there. Can anybody see any issues there? Do we look as though we've covered all the penetrations? Looks like we've got the drain in the kitchen underneath the kitchen sink. So where there's a drain pipe going through the slab, there would have to be some special in this case termi mesh provisioning. In the bathroom, under the toilet, the basin, if there's a floor waste, which looks like there's not, so that probably means that the shower is the floor waste. There's probably a floor waste in the middle of the laundry, and then we've probably got a basin over here. Looks like we've got 3 sleeves or collars that would need to be put on the slab penetrations in the ensuite. And then right around the whole job, around the outside of the whole job, we've got some external perimeter termite management systems. Now, the thing that I thought of when we were looking at this is if you look at the floor level, for example, the main floor level of the main house is called 0, and then the garage is 86 mils lower, and the veranda is 86 mil lower than the main floor level. In some cases, people won't pour this whole slab all in one go. And if it's poured in 2 slabs, because there's a step down here, there'd need to be a termite management system between these 2 slabs. In this particular case, we've got the termite management system shown through here. So we'd assume there that the veranda slab is going to be poured separately, and that may be okay, but we may even need a perimeter inspection in here if we're going to pour this whole slab as one. So the people who are the experts on this are the people who supply, for example, in this case, the termi mesh. So whoever supplies it, they're the ones who usually they would write out the warranty, and they're the ones who you would need to have to make sure that you've got it detailed according to their specifications. So what have we got in here that we need to be aware of? Okay, yeah, you're all chatting about something else there. That's all good. So beware of system detailing and placement. If veranda and garage slabs are not poured at the same time, that might create some issues. Just a couple of bits of information here and a couple of other types of systems, and then we'll move over to the final activities for the night. So there's a video here is going to run for 1.5 minutes. I'll turn the microphone off here and just pop the video on in your classroom, and then we'll come back once that's run. Okay, I'm going to roll through a couple of videos now. I'll turn the microphone off and just run through a couple of these videos. I've got a series of them set up there. And then once we finish the Granite Guard one with Daniel, then we'll come back and have a bit of a chat. I think that'll probably work out the best there. I think I'll probably just show each of these. I'll get these all opened up for you. I just picked a sample of a few different types of systems that are available. And just remember, there's more coming up. These are just some of the ones. And then after a second, once you finish there, I'll come back and do the open up the quiz for you. And then we'll move on over into just classwork for the night. I haven't got any more videos. You finished videos? I wanted to get you confused, which I think I've successfully done. Everybody says they've got the best system, so let's have a look at what Australian Standard says about quickly about termites, and then I'll open up the quiz and we're done. So once again, we need to make sure that we go to the Australian Standards, and there's a heap of information in there which all the termite product things need to adhere to. Looks like we're having a bit of a slow time here. There we go. If you're not sure if there's an Australian standard for something, then just jump in here and type in a search word and it'll bring up a heap of hits generally if there's something for that. We're talking about harnesses and things today, and there's information everywhere for it. So look at that, 3660 termite management new building work. There's an amendment for new building work. This one's in and around existing buildings and structures. Assessment criteria for termite management system. That's going to be for the people who develop the new systems. Okay, so let's have a look here for new building work, because that's probably applicable to most of us. And it seems like nothing's happening, but it is in the background with Australian standards. And up comes the document. And I'll pretty much save that so that I can then see it really easily, and I'll get a little bookmark on the side. You can see what this is going to give us is a whole heap of information on how we can use this termite management standard for all the different parts that we might need. We've got a scope in here. Okay, what happens if you've got things adjacent to buildings? I'll just skim through some of the titles here. It actually has some really good drawings about how everything needs to be designed. And as a builder, you just need to be aware of some of this. And if you find that someone's using a particular type of system, then they won't use the word Termimesh, obviously. Then you just need to make sure that things are done according to the standard, because ultimately you could be liable. So here's potential points of entry for buildings. Okay, potential entry points for termites. We've got a whole heap of information in there. Requirements general, requirements for slabs, structural elements below termite management systems, requirements for suspended floors, okay, concrete slabs, sheet materials, granular materials. So this section sets out the requirements for sheet materials used as a termite management system. We looked at a video of some of that a little while ago. Okay, there's some of the requirements. If it's going to be stainless steel, it's got to be according to a certain standard, all the different things. Requirements for granular material. They won't use the term granite guard, but it still must meet certain standards. Okay, it tells you about how it's got to be fitted. They've got the details there about where it goes. That's what the guy was saying on the video. What about for chemical treatment? Talks here about chemical treatment. Guidance on this is an appendix, so that's information at the end of the main standard, and this gives us guidance on installation for them, for the systems. Certificates of installation. The installers of a termite management system in accordance with this standard should provide the person soliciting the work, that's probably you, all copies, and you're the builder. This is something that you hand over at the end. Okay, if you want to learn a little bit about different types of termites, that's all good. This is real helpful here because this tells us some of the naturally termite resistant timbers. That'd be useful, wouldn't it? There's an example of the botanical name and the common name for Australian hardwoods. And this is a list of naturally termite resistant timbers. Why wouldn't you build with something like that if you had the opportunity? So we've got a whole heap of different types of timbers and things there. We keep on going down, you'll come to, that's hardwoods. You've got some softwoods, black cypress pine. Cypress is naturally termite resistant. Yew pine, some of those ones real hard to get, but they may be available. So there you can see preservative type timbers, and then it's going to go through some soil testing and a bit of building site management. This is useful for us as the builders to reduce the risk of subterranean termite infestation during and immediately following construction. The following precautions should be taken. Any nest of economically important wood feeding species of subterranean termites, see note 1, found within the property boundaries up to a distance of 50 metres from the proposed new building works should have the colony eliminated prior to commencement of construction works. What's note 1 say down here? We'd have to go looking for note 1. Oh, here it is. Options for colony elimination are given in Australian Standard 3660.2. That's how you can eliminate it. This is 3660.1. Also, all tree stumps and logs shall be excavated and removed from the building footprint. I don't want to ask right here and now, but I'll bet you many of you are doing building, and the building footprint may have still contained some stumps or some logs that have been underneath that may not have completely been dug out. Tree roots that have been exposed within the excavation shall be removed from the building footprint. All timber offcuts, building debris, removable formwork and other waste materials shall be removed from the area to be treated, including underneath the floor if it's a suspended floor. I'm not sure what else I can say about termite management for tonight's lesson, apart from those things. You've seen a couple of different videos there. It may be quite confusing, but you can see from the Australian Standard what your job is. And I'll quickly put a link up to that at the end. And then your job now is to go through and fill in the quiz activity. And this is dealing with termite treating plan and coordinating. So there's an activity here for you with pretty much one question. The question is, you are supervising the start of Mr. and Mrs. Smith's project. You need to plan and organise the process of installation of a guaranteed termite management system. List the bullet points, the items that need to be considered for correct installation. So I would be thinking you'd want to put some information like this in here, building site management. You'd want to make sure that any nest that was in the area, you'd inspect the area within 50 metres of the building, and any nest is been got rid of according to 3660.2. Any tree stumps would be removed, any timber offcuts would be removed, and then you can all go through. And so just your job is just to answer that one, and then we'll check it and have a look at that possibly tomorrow night. So I've done all the teaching I can do there from that point of view. Have we got any questions or anything? And then I think we'll get Glenn to close off the recording, and then we'll just help you do classwork for now.